This is Karen with NewClevelandRadio.net, and it's time for On the Lot with Matt Jackson. And Matt, this is week 2, and I am so excited because after week 1, within days, you sent me a list of phenomenal guests you're going to have on. But today, I'm like already in love with your guests. So, tell
Well,
everybody who we have.
here we go. You know, we have to be proud and we have to be loud during these times. And so this opportunity that you have provided for this radio show is really exciting. But I'm also really excited to welcome our guest today. We have Perrin Post here, and we have Tx Tario. And Perrin and I have not seen each other for probably longer than Tex has been alive. Okay, that's for sure.
Wow.
Yeah.
Perrin was somebody that when I was in high school, she was the choreographer for a show I was doing called Brigadoon. And from the day I met Perrin, I knew she was a very special person because Perrin had the ability to salute everybody's inner light when she was working with us. And there was something very special about Perrin from the moment I met her. It's been a long time since we've chatted. I've gone on my journey in Los Angeles and I've done my executive role out here. But when I saw what Perrin was doing, I had to have her on the show, and she's going to talk to us about some of her creations. Tx Tario is on the show because Tex is a young actor and writer and producer who is working on similar projects that have to do about being bold and being loud and diversity and making sure that your voice is heard. So they both have different projects that they are championing, and we're going to talk about those today. So Perrin, thank you for being here. It's so good to see you. And
great to see you, Matt.
We want to hear all about what you're doing and how these fights are probably more relevant today than ever before.
I take it you want to start with protest here.
Well, protest is amazing. I mean, protest.
Yeah. You know, I lived 10 blocks in Minneapolis from where everything went down, including the George Floyd murder and everything. And, you know, it's awful to say, but it's so many of us in Minneapolis. When Obama was president, we thought, oh, you know, we're all good now. Racism is not as prevalent, and boy, was I wrong. So one of the things that after my friends and I, you know, literally guarding our houses to make sure our garbage cans weren't set on fire or our cars weren't rifled through or stolen, you know, it really brought the neighborhoods together. It brought everybody together for a unity that I've never felt in my life. And of course, as a theater person, I was like, what can I do? What can I do? I'm this older white woman. What can I do? But I also have a very diverse group of friends in the theater, including musicians, actors, directors, yeah, you name it. And I thought, and I also, one of my big things for my production company, Buffalo Gal Productions, all along has been I want to create shows for and about women and get the woman's voice out there.
Right.
So when all these protests were literally going down my street, you know, almost in front of my house, and and a lot of my coworkers were in the protests. So a couple of them were almost hit by that truck that went on the highway, you know, accidentally, or whatever happened there. They were literally almost hit and killed. And so I can't even tell you when, but one day I just went, the word protest, I just went, protest. Oh my God, that's in alone, it's a show. And as I started looking up some famous, some not so famous protesters, especially starting with George Floyd, which includes Kimberly Jones and the Black Lives Matter trio of founders and you know, all the people that were coming to speak here in Minneapolis, I was like, oh, okay. And as I started looking up the women protesters, of course, John Lewis died. And, you know, so all of these influences were just like hovering around my head. And I went, but as I looked up all the people, excuse me, one second. My cat is clawing at the door and it's going to interfere with the audio. Sorry.
Okay, we're live. We have live issues. It's okay.
I was like, oh, it's got to be by me all times. So anyway, but I really, really wanted to, I started looking at all, especially from the 1960s on. I've always been a big fan of people, you know, of all the women that headed from Jane Fonda to Angela Davis.
Mm-hmm.
And I realized there's so many women out there that are started protesting when they were very young, like a Greta Thunberg, and she will be protesting her whole life against whatever she needs to. So I really wanted to make it multi-generational, multifaceted. So I kind of picked the most interesting protests to me, or the most prevalent ones, which included, you know, going backwards, George Floyd, the Million Woman March, and going way back to, you know, the civil rights with Diane Nash. Diane Nash was this quiet woman that this quiet woman that she didn't get all the accolades that someone like a John Lewis or Martin Luther King got, but she was there, and a nice, you know, and so I looked at bringing out, and from a younger generation to the older generation. So some of the characters will be Jane Fonda, who started protesting, you know, Vietnam, but she also is protesting, she's getting arrested right now with the Fire Drill Fridays. And I really tried to mix in everyone. AOC, I have Latino, I have Asian, I have Malala, who is from the Indian background. So I really wanted to really include all the different backgrounds of everyone and their stories and why they're protesting. But
so will protest be like a theater production that you put up in Minneapolis? Or
yes, that's the ultimate goal, but it's not the only goal. Now with COVID being so prevalent, I thought, and this is something new to me. I've done reviews and things like that, but I've never actually got so many songwriters, different songwriters from different walks of life. I said, I just want one song from you. I thought, because so many, a full show as a writer. But I'm sorry, I got stalled there.
I have a question for you. Like, do you feel like this is one of your missions in life?
You know,
have you always been somebody that has celebrated diversity, understood diversity? And for me, you said something earlier that's really interesting. Like, as a gay man living in Los Angeles, I might be in a little bit of a bubble here. Like, I sometimes think like, oh, it's okay. Like, the world's full of acceptance. Karen reminded me that where she's from, like, that's not always the case. And so I've realized, oh, we all have to actually keep fighting for our rights. It's unfortunate that
I go back to my little hometown and there are Trump signs everywhere. It kind of just makes me sick to my stomach. And I've actually unfriended people on Facebook because I'm like, you know, and it's not even about politics. It's about supporting people who have a clear mission and good morals and are trying to do good in this world and not be divisive. And that's it for me. It's like, because I've never had this feeling before,
right,
for this last 4 years. So, but you know, as far as protest goes, it was, you asked me what it was going to be, and I said, first I want it to be a concert. It would be a workshop concert, so I have all these songwriters lined up, except one or two. And it's funny because the one songwriter I don't have yet, although we're working on it, is the Black Lives Matter song.
Okay.
And it's funny that that's the one that I think scares people right now, and being that we're fully in it. And
Yeah.
So it's going to hopefully be a concert this next summer, and we'll workshop those songs. And I have a music director, Barbara Cohen. She's actually was out in LA up until a few months ago, and she came back to take care of her aging parents.
Yeah.
But you can, as you know, you can do your art from anywhere. So
Yeah.
she just got done scoring a film, and she's going to help with, she's going to be writing a couple songs herself in protest, and then she's going to help actualize all the other people's songs and try and make it somewhat cohesive of a project. Then the second step is to bring in a coalition kind of writers, all different shapes and makes. I don't even care if it's a man in there. I try and go for more women, but as far as songs go, there are a couple men writing songs for it. So I don't want the man's voice to be left out either. But it is about women. So it's just, it excites me to just see each of their protests and what they fought for, and how the civil rights protest has brought you to the next point. And then those women took over and brought you to the next point.
So you're tackling the issues of diversity and acceptance isn't just among race. It's not just among sexual orientation, but it's among gender and also ageism. And so you are actually celebrating all of those differences. So that's awesome and to be applauded. I'm going to just transfer over here for a quick second over to Tex, who's also going to chime in on what he's working on, because we have similar themes here of acceptance and wanting to be recognized. Tex, tell us what you're working on.
Yeah, so I am working on a 6-episode mini-series or limited series that highlights the annexation of Hawaii. It's a part of history that not a lot of people are aware of. And some people even forget that Hawaii is a state altogether. So I'm here to just bring to light the voice of my culture, my heritage, and share it with everyone, because I think it's important to understand. In order to move forward, we need to understand where we came from.
And what do you think is the biggest misconception about Hawaii? Like, what do those of us on the mainland, what are we missing? What do we not know?
I think what everyone sees is a lot of beauty, really nice, welcoming people, a lot of hospitality. What they fail to recognize is that our land was stripped away from us, our cultural identity stripped away from us, our language even stripped away from us. And so people don't see the bloodshed and the tears and all the struggle that we went through as a culture and people. And that's a part of American history, and we don't even know that. So
how did the Black Lives Matter movement affect you wanting to tell this story?
Well, I mean, I was living in New York during the whole outbreak of the pandemic. And then when the Black Lives Matter movement came to fruition and came to light. And so it was really scary, to be honest. People were really angry, and they should have been, because of all the social injustice that was happening. And it was long overdue. So it was something that woke me up, because I mean, I have friends and family across, the country who are affected by this. And so for me, stripping everything away, I just wanted to make sure that we get back to what's important: helping others, caring for others, flipping it instead of focusing on all of the issues that are plaguing our country, using those issues to flip it into a positive situation.
So Perrin was saying that she's still looking for a composer for the Black Lives Matter song. How is your project coming along? What are some of your obstacles? What are some of your wins? What are some of the challenges?
Having to go over the history of my culture, I'm finding that we're not far off. What we're seeing today in our media is the exact same thing we've seen with indigenous peoples everywhere. And so the themes are the same, with brutality and with power, corrupting and with greed. But on the flip side, we also see, like Perrin was saying, unity and togetherness. We see change, and it's people like Perrin, it's people like us who are here today to open the dialogue that are actually going to change, and that are courageous enough to make the change that we need to see.
Well, one thing I think all four of us have realized in recent weeks is when Karen came to me about the idea of doing a show, because we have to march for diversity. I think all four of us here are realizing the need for it, and how we actually can't rest on our laurels. We have to keep fighting and pushing forward. Perrin, I also want to hear about what else you're working on. I know you have some other projects too that you probably want to talk about a little bit.
Sure. I do want to add on to Texas. I forgot to say the Standing Rock thing is also in protest. And it's also something that is a very hot subject in Minnesota right now with the Native American lands. And
oh yeah.
So that actually opens the show with the Standing Rock women. So
very cool.
Just wanted to say that. I forgot to say Native Americans, and I cannot forget that. We just had a streaming of my show Sweetland. It's an idea I saw the movie Sweetland 14 years ago and just really worked on it for almost 10 years straight, and through workshops and such. And then History Theater in St. Paul picked it up and put it on their schedule at the spring 2017. And it was a simple love story, and it was something that we were just supposed to follow the film, and that's why I loved it. It was about a German immigrant woman in 1920 coming to marry a Norwegian farmer, pretty much sight unseen. His mother had sent her over, and it's kind of the prejudices that she faces in her small community after World War I, when the Germans were so hated in this country. I wouldn't say it's the immigration stories that we have now are so important to tell. So it's literally a simple love story between two people. So Sweetland has been doing quite well. It got picked up in Seattle, and Taproot Theater did it. And so now it's my job as a producer to try and get other places to do it. But right now,
great. That's great. But challenging right now. Challenging when all
challenging right now. It's just like, because theater's dark and everything. I mean, some theaters don't even know if they're going to come back. I mean, to see the Guthrie sitting there dark for probably a year and a half, 2 years straight, it's crazy. So, So I feel like if we can do an outdoor concert with protest and have people socially distanced and still workshop it and have fun with music, I think we're gonna. That's what I love about artists. We have discovered ways to do our art no matter what.
100%. And the Minneapolis theater scene is such a wonderful theater scene. So I'm guessing that all the theaters there, Perrin, they're all like temporarily closed, right? So it's just like, is there a feeling of sadness that comes with that amongst the community?
I think it's more like, it's not sadness necessarily, it's more of a boredom. Like, God, I want to go to the theater, or I want to go to a movie theater. I want to do something, but I think a lot of people are channeling their inner artistic instincts into. I've seen my leading lady, Ann Michaels in Sweetland. She has become a really good nature photographer. So she takes a walk every day. And same with Regina Marie Williams. She was there every day at the George Floyd Memorial, her and her husband, who's a photojournalist for the Star and Trib. And she started taking all these nature photos too. So people are really finding other things, whether it be gardening or whatever. And I have not seen any of my theater friends say, "Oh, poor me."
Uh-huh.
None of them. And a good friend of mine just started working with me at Trader Joe's.
Yeah,
So, and
great.
she's been an actress her whole life, you know? So I was like, you know, I think we're trying to keep positive about it, and we know theater will come back. It's just a matter of when. And yeah, and I think that the community is supporting the theaters here too. They are giving them money still. The streaming of Sweetland went, I believe, pretty well at History Theater. So people were glad to be able to at least be in their home and stream a show, whether it be a Broadway show or my show or whoever's show. And I mean, I hopped on that bandwagon very quickly. I brought the idea to History Theater and I said, I have this great 3-camera shoot. I said, there's no reason why you should be sitting dark without anything.
Yeah.
So I said, how about if we give the actors some money, hopefully make the History Theater some money, and just keep theater out there.
Great. That's
in a
great.
different way.
Yeah, absolutely. Tex, how's it working for you in the TV community? Are you finding that the TV community is open? Is it closed? Is it limited? What are you finding?
I'm kind of navigating this in my own way. I'm finding for myself that, well, you kind of have to be bold and reach out to your network and see how we can all utilize each other. So I'm finding that the network of people and the support group that I have has really been something that I've been leaning on, something that we're able to lean on each other during this time and help each other. You know, it's just connecting the dots at this point.
Right.
And yeah.
So my production company, All Roads Lead Productions, Perrin, I think I sent you the mission statement about it.
Mm-hmm.
But also, I just want to put an olive branch out there to you, that if there's ever anything that we can do together in terms of finding you diverse writers, musicians, projects, anything that you might need as an LA, Minnesota connection, we can continue to work together to really bring diverse voices to the forefront, however that may be.
And that's the great thing about it. Doesn't matter where you're at. It's I believe one of my songwriters lives in LA. She's Ashley Dubois. She's she's making quite a name for herself. So well, I don't care where people are from. Even though Minneapolis has a great theater scene and actually music scene, and we all know that, but it's I'm looking. Yeah, I found my Sweetland writer in San Francisco.
Yeah.
So my composer.
Well, I think as virtual as we all are, I think we're also all human.
Well, listen to the three of you. One of the things that what I'm hearing is that, number one, as a patron of the arts, as somebody who sits home and watches TV, we don't know really what you've all been going through. We assume that life is wonderful because you're Broadway, you're Hollywood, you're producers. And that's why I thought bringing all this diversity into a discussion like this is going to help us support you more. And Perrin, when I hear you say that you're working at Trader Joe's, I applaud you, because most of my musician and theater friends, they went out and they found other things to do while keeping up the arts. But there are so many of us who sit at home going, oh, woe is me. I can't go to the movies. I can't go to a concert. And what I keep preaching to people is there's stuff on Zoom, there's stuff on YouTube, and keep the arts going and support them. There are tip jars and there's a reason for it. If you went to the movies, how much would you be spending? So put a tip in the tip jar. And I'm hoping that as Matt and I continue these dialogues, we're all going to be seen for the values we all have, because I really think they're good values.
Yes.
Yeah. I think the current administration, the current political climate, the current, again, Black Lives Matter movement, it's just telling us we have to push harder. We have to push harder. And being somebody who's had my own set of differences and challenges growing up, and maybe thought that, okay, maybe I reached a place where like, I'm okay. I might be okay, but there's so many other people that I need to reach, especially the youngsters out there. Like, I'm a big fan of like making sure that we build self-esteem and develop our young people to be strong leaders. And I know that you guys are all about that too, but it's important that the human interest stories that we're telling now resonate with the young people, so that they know where this all came from. It's interesting because even the young 20-something gay men that I encounter in Los Angeles, they don't know about Stonewall. They don't know about some of the fights that took place in the beginning. And all of the history, all of the timeline, all of the protests, all of the marches, they are all compacted with where we are today. And they're emotional topics, and I'm choked up a little bit of it because it's just what I said before. Obama once said when he was president that he went to so many places and met with so many people, and he said, everyone's human. Everybody wants the same things. They want acceptance and they want love. It doesn't matter what skin color you're in. It doesn't matter your sexual orientation. It doesn't matter if you're rich or poor. At the end of the day, we all want acceptance and we all want love. And I think we're all working really hard to do that. And it's really important.
You know, I lived in Minneapolis during the race riots of the 60s. And I really thought when it was over and we started rebuilding that we really had learned something and we were going to grow from it. You know, I didn't look at people's skin when I was going to school, and they could have been white as white. They could have been black as black. They were still my friends. We still had something in common. And so I didn't understand the race riots when I was 15 years old. And I remember asking my parents, why is this happening? And my mother and father looked at me and they said, we don't even know. We should all be brothers and sisters. And then here again, it happened in 2020. I mean, it really saddens me that we didn't teach the generations coming ahead that we should be brothers and sisters.
I think that's part of it. I think it's part of passing the baton of the messaging. It's not supposed to repeat itself. You know, I think it is part of passing the baton and making sure that there's an inclusion of those of us that are in the arts. We sometimes start with the messaging, but it's the people who are maybe not in the arts that also have to hear it. And it's reaching out to those people and trying to get our creative juices and our powerful instincts out to the masses so that these things don't become a cycle. And that's not easy. Not easy.
And I remember the whole reason why people are, especially when they're young, they go towards a theater club or being in a show is because it's so inclusive. You can be who you are. You can just have fun. And it's, yeah, I just think I'm sorry, I lost my train of thought.
Perrin, when did you first start in the theater? Was it as a choreographer? Is that how you started?
No, I was 12 years old when I did my first show. I started off as a pretty young actor, and then I kind of tried everything and done everything in theater. I don't choreograph anymore.
Okay.
But that was a kind of a freelance thing for me to do in my 20s, and so I started choreographing, which was a lot of fun, but I realized that I really wanted to direct. And then so I started my own company, and after moving to New York and out to LA, I came back and I was like, I'm going to do my own shows. I don't know why, but I get these little brain babies, as I call them, while I'm driving or whatever, and I'm like, oh, that's a show idea. And if it stays with me, then I try and bring it to life. And if it goes away, it goes away. But I that's what I love about even things like Netflix or like Tex's idea. It's like, we have to learn through Netflix or these documentaries or whatever. That's all I do is watch. I've learned so much through the new television or whatever you want to call it, because there is so much more opportunity out there to tell stories like Tex is writing, and we need to know those stories. I'll go to work and I'll say, oh my God, you have to see this documentary on blah, blah, blah. And they're like, what? And I find myself introducing, and all these stories to people they have no idea about. And I said, well, just watch it, and then make up your own mind. And that's why I think it's also important to watch all the political documentaries, whether they be about a person you like or don't like. I think it's very important to learn all the history, as you were saying. We need to know history, whether it be rock and roll or gay and lesbian, lesbians went through, Stonewall and beyond. We need to know all this history to understand. And it's up to not only our teachers now, but I think it's up to the parents. And there's so many good guides, through all these documentaries on Netflix. It's like, you can just sit back and have your kid watch this and they'll learn a lot, So that's my little plug for Netflix, I guess.
Karen, are you?
Oop, you're frozen, Matt.
Matt froze.
Oh, did I freeze?
Yes, you did. Yeah.
What did you just say?
Oh my goodness, I froze. I'm so sorry.
It's okay.
Oh, that's okay.
No, I was just going to say that our media partners are doing a good job of bringing interesting topics for us to watch. They're doing a good job, and let's hope that the broadcasters, the main broadcasters, can start doing some of the same, and not be so scared of what they're putting on television. And look, I've been in the entertainment business and media for 20 years, and there are some people who are every day they go to work scared for their job because of what they're not sure they should put on television. But what we're learning is, put it on, teach us. We want to learn. Humans want to learn, and we all want to learn from each other, which is what we're doing here. So thank you guys for sharing, your stories and your journeys. And I think it's awesome that these formats bring us together to realize we are actually have more in common. And Perrin, I'm sorry that I missed you when you were in LA. I guess it wouldn't have been for if it's not
short stint. It was a short stint.
Okay.
I worked at Morgan Freeman's production company as a intern.
How was it? Was that a great experience?
Yeah, because I was really, at that point, I was doing some script writing too. So I've kind of just tried to write everything, but I guess you just keep writing, right, Tex? You just write, and figure out
along the way.
Yeah, but for me, it always came back to musical theater.
Yeah.
Because that's what I grew up with. And, but not that I'm even a bigger fan of the kind of thing that Tex is doing. So, I mean, that's where I love to learn and I love to hear those stories. So,
well, Tex and I are doing it together, and it's an uphill battle.
It is.
Every day, but you put your nose to the grindstone, right? And you put in many hours, and you talk and you contemplate and you think about what's a good story, and you think about what is important to history, and you got to put all the elements in there. And Tex and I were able to get an amazing writer on our project, somebody who's currently writing for HBO. He's a Black writer, which is awesome because we want to bring that to the forefront. And so many stories, the stories that I'm telling have to do about diversity and trans and acceptance all across the board, all over the place. So we're all doing the same thing.
Tex, I was very interested when you made the comment about Hawaii, because I think most of us have no concept that the people of Hawaii really lost their identity to a great degree. We all think growing up, in the 50s and 60s, wasn't this wonderful? You know, Hawaii is now part of the United States. And I think it is wonderful. But at the same time, why do we have to change people?
Right.
And that's the big question I ask all the time. You know, when my grandparents came here from Europe, you know, the first thing my grandfather was told, you must learn to speak English and you must work in a diverse group. And he was taken away from all of his family and friends. And he learned English, but when he was amongst, you know, his Jewish, you know, friends, he spoke Yiddish. But he knew when he walked out the door, he had to stop. He had to speak English. And having dual language, there's no problem with it as far as I'm concerned. But let's not change each other. You know, that is the sad part.
I mean, the crazy thing about Hawaii is people came to Hawaii from all different backgrounds and no one tried to change each other, but somehow we were all able to work together and communicate together with Hawaiian Pidgin English, which is basically a form of English that you're able to communicate with Chinese people, Portuguese, Filipino, Spanish, French, Tahitian, but I think with everything that's happening, I feel so lucky and gracious to have the opportunity to come as one, but stand as 1,000. I mean, and Maya Angelou said it best, because doing a project that Matt and I are working on and the things that Perrin is working on with theater, which is the heart and soul of our craft as actors, you need to realize that what you're coming with is also your ancestors behind you. And so for me, that's everything to me. Family is everything to the Hawaiian people.
Beautifully said. Well, is there anything else that, Perrin, you want to tell us that we should be on the lookout for? Anything else that you're working on that we should be aware of?
I have 2 other shows that I'm still looking for a composer for Big Island, and I actually want it to be, a Black composer, because it takes place at the turn of the century, and it's a true story, semi-true story, about, where Lake Minnetonka?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, Big Island. It's
Big
just a big
island
island in the middle of it. And Thomas Lowry, who basically helped the Twin Cities come to life, especially Minneapolis, he came here early on and apprenticed under Abraham Lincoln and things like that. But he and his family were a huge thing, and there's statues all over Minneapolis and all that, for not only building the railway system and from St. Paul to the Twin Cities and beyond. And so this train they built it all the way to Lake Minnetonka. So, and it's about the story about the family and building this huge amusement park on this island. And they had to get electricity run over there and water cables, and it was a huge undertaking. And then there was music events, and so I concentrated on the middle daughter. There were 3 kids, and I concentrated on the middle daughter, it being her idea to, well, once they get to the end of the train, besides the hotels and the lake, I said, what if there was this other glorious thing that they could have for entertainment and a huge amusement park? And she hires this Chicago band to come entertain. And so that's one thing I kind of made up, but I wanted to really get diversity into it. I wanted to bring a love interest thing on, even, and she's married and has kids, and here's this middle daughter of this white well-to-do family, but she and the band leader, Alexander Sweet is his name, they kind of fall for each other, and she makes some big decisions throughout the play. And so I really wanted to bring in a diversity to this total white bread story. But I think it's a very interesting story, and in the way of Minneapolis, St. Paul history. And then my other story is about Kay Thompson and Hilary Knight. They brought the Eloise books to light, and Kay Thompson, as I did more research, was such a phenomenal woman. She was from the time she was young, she was a concert pianist, then she was an orchestrator, and then she was vocal coach for famous people. She taught Judy Garland how to sing and to be Judy Garland, basically.
Wow.
Yeah.
And she was in Funny Face the movie, and she just did everything. Plus, she's still to this day the top paid cabaret artist ever.
Wow.
And at Ciro's Cabaret, I believe that was in Los Angeles.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so anyway, as I did more research about her, and she had a love affair with Andy Williams, the Williams brothers. And I mean, I was just like, oh my God, why isn't anyone telling her story? We have to talk about this.
Perrin,
it's more of a like series. She's done so much. It's more of like a Netflix or bio series.
Oh yeah. Let's get it going. Let's get it into development. Do you, for theater projects, and this is just a question I can ask maybe later too, but do you have to put do you have to get the rights to your projects? Do you have to get the rights for theater or not?
Well, I did from Ali Salim. He was the writer of the original screenplay of Sweetland. So yes, I had to get the rights from him and the short story writer, Will Weaver. That was my first hurdle, but they liked my passion behind their story. And I told them, I said, I don't want to change anything about your story. I want to just put it on stage, and a few things will have to be done in a different way. But so yeah. And then, if you're getting rights to music, existing music, yes, you have to. I'll be interested to know what happens. Maya Angelou's name was brought up. Maya Angelou is one of the characters in Protest. Because there's the young Amanda Gorman, poet laureate, and then there's Maya Angelou on the other end of the spectrum. And I do want to use one each of their actual poems that they did, or spoken word for Amanda Gorman. So that still I'm having to look into, and I'm having to look into getting an entertainment lawyer that actually deals with each, for songwriters, like, it's not like one composer for a show. It's like, it's composed by so many people, and it's going to be written by so many people. We have to figure out, like, okay, how is this going to work? And even though
God bless you for that. God bless you for figuring that out.
Yeah, and seriously, we'll talk about that later. I don't know how that's all going to work. So all I know is, like, in theater, you have a contract that's all favored nations, where everybody gets paid the same.
Yeah.
That you get this much commission for your song, but the songwriters, for example, in Protest, will be able to own their own songs too. Yeah. They can do whatever they want with their own songs, but it has to go in a show. If or I get first right of refusal.
Yeah, it's a tricky business. So I applaud you for getting into that, because the music rights for TV, for theater, there's two elements. We can talk about this later, but there's copyright and there's publishing, and you have to get the rights for both. So we can chat about that later. I have a little bit of inside scoop on that.
Perfect.
Thank God for Tex. He's writing his own music. He's just doing his own music, right, Tex? You're just going to do it yourself?
That's really the way to go. That's definitely the way to go.
Karen, thank you for having all of us here to express our stories, and to be bold, and to be proud, and to be loud, and all of that. So Perrin and Tex, thank you for being here. And I hope that we can have you both back as this show progresses, and tell us about your projects and what's happening and how we can all collaborate.
Yay. Sounds great.
You all have been fantastic. This has been a passion of mine for a while, to get our voices out. And Matt, you're doing a great job. And I can't wait to see how our listeners are going to react to this, because this is a very positive message. So thank you all.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Hey.